Night fell on Hollow Creek like a shroud, heavy, suffocating. The air was thick with an almost tangible darkness wrapping around everything it touched. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The kind of darkness that pressed against your skin, stealing your breath. It was more than just the absence of light. It was a presence, a living, breathing entity that seemed to watch your every move. A shiver ran down my spine, a primal instinct telling me to get inside. Lock the doors. Don't look back. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the leaves outside seemed amplified, echoing in the silence. The old swing set at the edge of the woods creaked in the wind, a lonely, mournful sound. It was a relic of happier times, now forgotten and left to the elements. The creaking was almost rhythmic, like a ghostly lullaby. The whispers started then, soft at first, like the rustling of leaves. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a disembodied chorus that sent chills down my spine. But something about them set my teeth on edge. These weren't the sounds of nature. These whispers had a voice. They carried a sense of urgency, a warning perhaps, or a threat. It was as if the very night was trying to communicate, to tell me something I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling the air with an eerie, unsettling presence. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something unseen was lurking just beyond the edge of the darkness. It was Deputy Brody's scream that shattered the uneasy peace. The night had been eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. A high, keening wail that cut through the stillness like a rusty saw blade. It was a sound that spoke of pure, unfiltered terror, a sound that no one should ever have to make. I ran towards the sound, my heart pounding against my ribs, each step heavy with dread. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Every shadow seemed to move, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. The sight that greeted me at the edge of the woods would forever be seared into my memory. It was a scene from a nightmare, something no amount of training could prepare you for. Deputy Brody, his face ashen, was doubled over, emptying the contents of his stomach onto the ground. His body convulsed with each heave. The sound of his retching mingling with the eerie silence of the forest. His gaze was fixed on something just beyond the tree line, something I couldn't yet see. His eyes were wide with horror, his pupils dilated as if he had seen something that defied all logic and reason. His hand trembled as he pointed a shaking finger. The gesture was slow, almost reluctant, as if he was afraid that acknowledging it would make it more real. Dear God, it's a tongue. The words barely escaped his lips, his voice a hoarse whisper. The severed tongue lay there, grotesque and out of place, a macabre testament to the horrors lurking in the darkness. The forest, once a place of serene beauty, had transformed into a realm of unspeakable terror. The whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a malevolent wind. They seemed to come from the tongue itself, a grotesque, fleshy thing lying amidst the fallen leaves. It was still slick with blood, pulsating faintly as if alive. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. This wasn't just some sick prank. This was something evil, something unnatural. We were standing on the edge of a nightmare, and it was calling our names. The first victim was Mrs. Hathaway, a kindly old woman who lived at the end of my street. They found her in her bed, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth frozen in a silent scream. The sheets were stained with blood, and the whispers, they said, were louder in her room. It was as if the tongue fed on her fear, growing stronger with each passing moment. Section 5. Spreading Fear. The terror that had gripped Hollow Creek tightened its hold with each passing day. Sleep became a luxury we could no longer afford. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window sent shivers down our spines. The whispers were everywhere now, slithering through the night, worming their way into our minds. They spoke of our deepest fears, our darkest secrets, reminding us that we were all vulnerable in the face of this unseen horror. The old librarian, Mrs. Clementine, swore she'd found something in a dusty, forgotten tome. A legend, she called it, a tale whispered around campfires meant to scare children. The story of a demon, a collector of tongues, who fed on the silence of the innocent. It was said that the demon would steal the tongues of those who dared speak its name, condemning them to a life of silent torment. And in their silence, it would grow stronger, its power spreading like a plague. We couldn't just sit back and wait to be picked off one by one. We needed a plan, a way to fight back against this nightmare. But how do you fight something that exists in the shadows, something that feeds on your fear? The answer, we decided, lay in the legend itself. If the demon fed on silence, then we would fight it with our voices. We would break the silence together and drive it back into the darkness from whence it came. The air crackled with tension as we gathered in the town square, our voices rising in unison, a chorus of defiance against the oppressive silence. The night was thick with an almost tangible fear, but we stood firm, our hands clasped together, forming an unbroken chain of solidarity. The ancient ritual had been passed down through generations, a desperate attempt to ward off the malevolent force that plagued our town. We chanted, we sang, we screamed until our throats were raw, our voices hoarse. The sound echoed through the empty streets, a haunting melody that seemed to reverberate off the very walls of our homes. Each note was a plea, a cry for salvation, a testament to our unyielding spirit. The darkness seemed to press in closer, as if trying to smother our defiant song. And then, from the heart of the darkness, a figure emerged. It moved with an eerie grace, its presence sending a shiver down our spines. The air grew colder, and a hush fell over the crowd as we watched, transfixed by the apparition that had come to confront us. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but its skin was as pale as death, its eyes glowing with an unholy light. The creature seemed to absorb the very essence of the night. its form shifting and flickering like a shadow caught in a gust of wind. We could feel its malevolent gaze upon us, piercing through the darkness. In its hand it held a grotesque, pulsating tongue. Our tongue. The sight was both horrifying and mesmerizing, a symbol of the terror that had gripped Hollow Creek for as long as anyone could remember. The creature raised the tongue high, as if to mock our efforts, to show us the futility of our resistance. The tongue of Hollow Creek. It was a reminder of the curse that bound us, a curse that we had yet to break. But even in the face of such horror, we stood together, our resolve unshaken. For we knew that as long as we had each other, there was still hope. The figure lunged, but just as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished, swallowed by the shadows. The tongue, however, remained lying on the cobblestones, still and silent. The whispers were gone, replaced by an uneasy quiet. The nightmare, for now, was over. But as we looked around at each other, our faces etched with fear and uncertainty, we knew that some questions are better left unanswered. Some horrors are too terrible to comprehend, and some nights the silence is deafening.